Welcome to Silver Pride 2021. My name's Gareth McLean, and I'm here with ALAN CUMMING, who's our big interview for this year. Welcome, ALAN.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thanks. Not too bad. Silver Pride is a festival. It's a unique online festival. I've got to read this part because I'm sort of memorised it. That forges connection between older LGBT plus people and encourages intergenerational communication in the gay communities. So this is a festival to raise money for older LGBT community groups. So thank you very much for doing this. And thank you to everybody that's bought a ticket. If you're hacked this, then clever you. I don't know how to do that. So we're here with ALAN CUMMING. He's an actor, he's a singer, a writer, a filmmaker. I had to write this down as well. A podcaster, an Olivier and Tony Award winner, a bar owner. He's done photography, he's done a skincare range, he's co-hosted the Tonys, and he's currently artistic director of the Adelaide Cabaret Festival. He's won a Golden Raspberry, and we mustn't forget that one. And he's also won many awards for his humanitarian work, notably from GLAAD and the Human Rights Campaign. In 2009, he was awarded an OBE. He's been in films from GoldenEye to the X-Men, Eyes Wide Shut to Romeo and Michelle's High School Reunion. His television career spans everything from The High Life to The Good Wife, Doctor Who, Do You Think You Are? And in theatre, he's been in Hamlet, Cabaret, The Threepenny Opera, Bent, The Bacchae, Macbeth, and most recently in the Old Vic in London, in Endgame with Daniel Radcliffe. Welcome. I'm surprised you've got time to do anything else.
I'm exhausted. I actually don't think I did win the Golden Raspberry. I think I was only nominated a lot.
Oh, okay. I think
I was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor, and I didn't win.
Oh.
But what was good though was that the other couple in the film won Worst On-Screen Chemistry.
Wow.
Yeah. And so all was not lost.
Okay, good. It must be quite. Is it like winning it once or being nominated is probably like a laugh, but I think if you were repeatedly nominated, well, that would be quite bad.
I mean, it's sort of like, I loved it. I thought it was hilarious. And it's so funny because that film, that was such a flop, that film. It's such a disaster. It's called Son of the Mask. I thought it was quite fun. I thought it was just a kid's film, and everyone, I think because everyone thought it was like supposed to be the sequel to the Jim Carrey one. Anyway, it was a pile-on. It was a huge pile-on, including like the director got nominated, the film got nominated, the other guy, Jamie Kennedy, he got nominated. Poor Bob Hoskins, he played my dad in it. He played Odin. I was Loki, and he got nominated for Worst Supporting Actor as well. I thought, oh, don't bring Bob Hoskins into it. It was hilarious.
He would like thump you though, I think. Bob Hoskins looks scary to me. I think it's because I saw, what was the one he was in? Was he in The Long Good Friday? Anyway, one of those gangstery films, yeah.
That was him.
Yeah.
You fucking can't. Yeah, he was scary. I really liked him. It was lovely. And do you know what I discovered? So when he was here, it was actually, I shot that film here in Australia. And he told me that he had once got a tapeworm he was in Africa making a film, and he got made sort of a sort of honorary chief of this not clan or tribe, and it was some ceremony. He had to eat brains or something of some animal. Anyway, he got like a funny tummy thing. He got a tapeworm, and I was like, oh, and he told me all about how you get it and how they find it and what they do. They literally have to go like this, like to pull it out.
Yeah. I think they wind it around a pencil, don't they, or something? That's what my mum used to say.
I mean, it's sort of like they dangle cheese outside your bum and wait for it. I can't remember. But anyway, what was so funny was that he said it was been years before, and he said, I went to the Hospital of Tropical Diseases, and I went, wait, what? And I said, that in Chinatown, and he went, yes, and I went, oh my God, my apartment in London at the time was an old building, and they'd done it all up, but it used to be the Hospital of Tropical Diseases. And I just imagine like Bob Hoskins, hairy old bum, bent over my sofa, having a tapeworm removed out of it. That was what I thought. When I went back to that flat, it was tainted forever.
Everywhere you could see Bob Hoskins' bum.
Yes.
Speaking of nether regions, how is your scrotum? That's the question on my lips at the moment. Scrotal aging.
Yes, Yes, I'm in the midst of, I'm writing all the little bits for my new show. It's called, my new cabaret show. It's called Alan Cumming's Not Acting His Age. So I'm redoing that sort of routine I did about visiting my dermatologist. My scrotum is fine, actually, and my scrotal aging seems to be at bay. But the last time I went to see him, he said I had a little sort of dry bit on the back of in between my shoulder blades at the back. And I said, I've got this little funny dry thing. And he went, oh, that's just an old man barnacle. I can burn it off for you. It's relentless.
Yeah. Fighting the tide of time. But to talk about aging, do you think, like, how did you imagine yourself? Did you ever think of yourself at the age you are now when you were younger? Because I'd never really had a comprehension of, well, what will I be like when I'm like 50 or 40?
No, I'm 56. My next big birthday is 60, for fuck's sake. It's so crazy. And I never really thought that far ahead. I mean, I remember thinking like 21 was just like, oh my God, over the hill. I remember that when I was like 16 or 17, just thinking, oh, he's 21. And then I just imagine, then of course, the goalposts change, and I remember, and now I really, I think it's interesting. I'm fascinated by the whole notion of getting older and, and people's attitudes to it. And I think if I've always had like, boyish, childlike, puckish, pixie, I've always had that. And I think I actually realized that's more about my energy, not about my physical being. And it's so interesting to me. I think what is aging is about, I think that I just feel we're all these mixed messages about, you've got to inject things in your head and get implants and eat these things and wear this and try and look young. And we sort of worship at the fountain of youth. And yet we're always told that, oh, don't do that, grow up, act your age. Oh, it's mutton dressed as lamb, all these sort of pejoratives about it. So we've got really interesting, a lot of mixed messages. And I think it's just like, I think if to say to someone, act your age, it means like close up. It's almost like Botox for your soul, You're saying stay somewhere. Don't be curious. Don't be open to the world. So it's really fascinating to me. And I feel like I love the fact that being older, like I have friends who could be my children. And I love that I can sort of feel like a peer with them. I can feel that they, we chat and we get on and we connect, and it's a two-way street. I was going to say, I feel I have wisdom and I've got, I've seen patterns. And I think, wisdom is just about seeing these patterns in life. It's basically life is the same show with different costumes. And it's about how you're going to react when the pattern repeats itself. And so I love being able to sort of share that with younger people, but it's definitely a two-way street as well. I learn lots from young people, and I think that's something you've got to be open to as well. The moment you think that you're the sort of the almighty, then that means that's also a form of Botox for the soul. So I just think it's really, I wish we lived in a culture that venerated not just older people, but venerated the process of getting, growing old as an accumulation of things rather than a loss of things.
I think because it was Maurice Chevalier, I think, who said he preferred old age to the alternative. And I think that's quite a good motto to live your life by. But that thing about acting your age is weird, I think, because like if you're nearly 60, a 60-year-old today is not like a 60-year-old 15 years ago or 30 years. I mean, I think about like my granny must have been 60 and she was ancient always, but you know what I mean? She was old then. So I think that there's a sort of youthfulness. And I wonder if that's because we're living longer or because people are more active into their sort of senior years. I mean,
we're probably looking after each other and, we're looking after ourselves and we are more active. And just sort of, I remember at drama school, my singing teacher seemed like, you know, a big grown up. He was probably only about 26 or 27. And I was probably, you know, 17. So that's a big, probably, I think he's less than 10 years older than me. But he seemed like an ancient old hag. And I think that it is true that it's like people, but then I think also mentally the goalposts change as you get older. You know what I mean? Like we think, oh, 60's young.
Yeah.
We didn't think that 20 years ago, you know.
Yeah, 60 is the new 40. However, when I was 40, it wasn't the new 40.
I know. And like 70 is not the new 20, everybody, okay? This is not.
But it's also, I think, unusual because the AIDS epidemic wiped out a whole generation of gay men. I think for me, you kind of look for those role models of what does it mean to be a gay man in his 60s, in his 70s, and just a gap, really. I think, and it's
that's so true.
Through that, I think it's a challenge.
I feel that. I feel like, I mean, I think it's sort of kind of, I mean, it's interesting. I was thinking the other day, I'm doing lots of interviews right now because I've got these things coming out. And, you know, loads of people always ask, who was your role model? Who did you look up to? Who did you?
Oh, I'm glad I haven't got that question planned.
Because I always say I don't. I mean, it's what I always say I don't really do that. I don't. There's lots of people I like, but I've never thought, oh, that I want to be like them. I want, you know, that's who I want to copy essentially, or you know, I've never thought that, and I actually think it's a positive thing because it means you just find your own. You find your own way. There's really no one I can think of who has the kind of career or life that I have had, and I that's you know. That's totally fine. I'm not lamenting that, but I've just actually never. But then I realized maybe I think that because there weren't people like that for me. I mean, there's sort of queer actors, older queer actors, a few of them, but either they were, and my life has been a little more complicated and circuitous than theirs, and also, you know, maybe either they were closeted or they're dead, you know, people who, and so it just struck me the other day, that's partly probably why I have kind of the feelings I have about having idols. I don't think it's necessarily a very healthy thing, but it's maybe because I didn't have any. And so I've just grown to, I think it's I don't think I need them, but maybe I do.
Well, so how would you feel, because you're a bit of a role model, are you not? How do you feel about someone saying that to you?
I mean, I sort of think I think it's you know, when people say I've inspired them, I think that's a great compliment and a great honor. I really do, and I like it more when people say I've inspired them as a person rather than as an actor. You know, and actually, when people, like, all the time, I get, mostly because of cabaret, people are always sending me pictures of themselves or saying, you know, oh, I'm doing this production of cabaret, or they send me a picture and it's just me. It looks like me, but a younger version. You know, they kind of do the suspenders and the hair and everything exactly the same way. And people ask, you know, can I ask you, how would you do this? What would you recommend? And I always say, it's not for me to tell you that. And I actually don't think you should. This is a role that you could do anything with. Anything. It's actually not really a proper role. It's more a sort of a cipher, kind of symbol of something, you know, so you can make it up any way you want. Why would you, when you've got all that choice, copy something that someone's already done? And so I sort of try and steer them away from that. And I don't give people advice about the role. I just think it's not healthy. I think it engenders this sort of, you know, genericism that I don't think is very creative. No. So I like that you know, it's nice that just by being you, by being me, by living my life and by speaking out about things about myself and the things I think are important, that I have affected people and inspired people and strengthened them. That is an amazing feeling. So I really like that part.
Yeah.
I just think that acting wise, I think you should be appreciated, not copied.
Yeah.
You know.
But then I suppose that takes bravery though, doesn't it? To forge your own path, to do
yes.
To take the role in cabaret and go completely off in that direction rather than sort of within the lines, as it were.
No, it does. But I think the only way that I think that, if the person that you think you were going to emulate says to you, don't do that, then maybe that's
Yeah.
maybe that'll help. That'd be the one thing that would make you do it.
Yeah, maybe. Because I mean, your career has been so eclectic. I mean, I think that's one of the most amazing things about it. It's just there's so much and so many different, I didn't mention on that list Chronicus that you were in, which was very scary. I didn't like that. And I've got some little Alan mementos with me here. We've got the DVD for
I like DVD.
That's from a long time ago. That's from
95.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, yes, I think so. You would know. Contains the famous line, "How's your arse for love bites, Miss Spartan?" which can be used at any occasion. And then, of course, we have your Macbeth. This was amazing. So
that was intense.
When Alan did a one-man Macbeth, did all the lines of Macbeth. There was two other people in it, but they only said two words.
Yes, that's how I felt. That picture's how I felt every night. Absolutely. Yes.
Triumphant that. And then, of course, we'll come to this book in a minute.
Oh, yes.
But we also have this book, of course, which is
yes,
off
my racing novel.
Yes. I'm still trying to work out who the actress is in there. It's a hard time. Well, I think we know who that is. Where do you get the energy to do all these different things? Because you've got, of course, a podcast, Alan Cumming Shelves, that's available at the moment, which is great. I was listening to it all yesterday.
Thanks, Gareth.
Particularly like
Forbes is
on a media speech. Sorry, Gareth.
Forbes is this week. Forbes is the next one.
Oh, wow.
Really good.
That would be nice. Because when I was growing up in Scotland, you were one of the visible gay people in sort of popular culture. And that was really important to sort of me. And, you're not that much older than me, but it was just, that was really important, I think, because there wasn't anybody. And I think today or yesterday's like the 33rd anniversary of Section 28 coming in. And there was that deliberate erasure of gay people. And I think that sort of, it's really important to have sort of role models or just visible people in the public.
It's so interesting. I was talking, one of the things I've got coming out is this, it's a podcast series that I directed called Hot White Heist, which is about a sperm bank heist. And it's like the gayest thing ever. It's like the queerest, it's got a queer writer, everyone's queer. It's Bowen Yang, Cynthia Nixon, Jane Lynch, Bianca Del Rio, Abby Jacobson. It just goes on and on and on. The cast's like this sort of all queer American stars. And people were saying, it's so great, isn't it, that this, they're saying, do you think it's true that queer people love hearing these stories because they love having lots of queer people all together at once? It's inspiring for them. I was like, actually, I think it's kind of, queer people are desperate to see themselves represented anywhere. Actually, it's not equal yet. And especially in certain genres. And this is it's a heist thing, but it's obviously, it's a parody of it because it's about a sperm bank heist. But I was saying how we need to have more representation in all spectrums. And actually, what I think one of the sad things about doing this podcast, as great as it is, it's very sort of self-ghettoizing. It's a bunch of, we made a virtue of the fact it's queer. And that's great. Coming out during Pride. And it's all just it's the queerest thing you could possibly imagine. Yet, I wish that it wasn't the case. I wish that we didn't have to do queer. It would just be sort of, we would be more integrated into everything in a way that wouldn't dilute our queerness, but would make it not be so like ghetto. It is ghettoizing actually when you think about it. So
I suppose that's arguably one of the good things that Ryan Murphy is doing, in that he's taking queerness to a mainstream audience.
Yes, absolutely.
But then the flip side of that is he's queering the mainstream, but is he also mainstreaming queerness? And what does that do to queerness? And is there essentially a subversive element to it that's lost? And what does that mean?
I think queerness has a wide spectrum. It's not just, it's you can have, I mean, his shows are so sort of stylized and, you know, and have a queer aesthetic, definitely. And they don't sort of compromise that. And yet they're still more nichey over their queerness.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, every time we are more represented, there's a slight sort of leap to sort of say, oh, it's a terrible thing and it's diluting it all, rather than saying it's not diluting it, it's kind of broadening it or diversifying it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's still the core of the thing that it's come from is still there, and I think is flourishing because of that. I really do. Yeah. And I think actually it's great to think there's, you know, that kind of idea and that way of, and I think you see that with young people, that they are much more, well, fluid in general, but fluent with kind of queer culture and queer ideas, because they've been, they've seen so much of it as they've been growing up.
Well, there's that great phrase, if you can't see it, you can't be it, which is the representation thing, I think.
Yes,
quite a good one. But how do you find, because obviously you do stand up for things, you know, you've got these awards, you've got all this energy to be an activist as well as everything else. Where do you find that energy from? And is it just something that's in you, matron? No.
I think I mean, first of all, you know, I find exhausting is things that I don't really like. When I'm doing things that I don't really, when I'm doing something that I really like, I don't, it's not like work. It's not like, you know what I mean? And by like, I mean, believe in, support, feel completely copacetic with. I think that things that exhaust me are when I'm, you know, doing something that I'm not completely behind and that is not. So I tend to always do things that I really like and feel passionately about, or just have fun with. And that is energizing in itself. So I think that's a big part of it. I've also, you know, I look at my mum, and I think there's a lot of genetics have a lot to do with it. She's, you know, 83, and she's saying, I'm going down the street with some soup for some old people and stuff like that. And she's like the most sort of busy person I know. So I think there's a lot of that. And I've always enjoyed having lots of, I'm very focused. I was actually just talking to Bojana Novakovic, the actress who was on Instinct with me. And she's very organized and very, you know, she writes down all things about the act, but she's like a scientist about acting. I am not. And I'm very sort of like, I'm very focused. When I'm in this moment, I'm completely, now here I am in this moment. And yet right before it, I can be like, you know, dancing and in between takes and everything. And I think that's the way I think that's why I can do so many things at once, and also why I'm good at letting go and relaxing as well. That you know, even though as busy as I am, I also have fun because I completely commit to the fun as well. Yeah. And I just think it's a thing about focus and just think, okay, I'm doing that now. Like today, I've done 5 or 6 different things. And, you know, and then I left and looking at this book I'm writing my new show, all the ideas in. I left that, I came to this thing, now I'm with you. Yeah. And after that, I'll go and do something else. And I think that's the thing. It's about your focus and it's about being a person as well. I think just not being distracted, try not to be distracted and that's why these are the banes of our life for that.
I was going to mention that. So that whole notion of being present is sort of the antithesis of, you know, people are on their phones and they sort of fall in love, so they're not present, you know, all these things to avoid being in the moment that we kind of deflect and project and all these things. But you seem very, very sorted. Is that years of therapy? I mean, what's the secret to your kind of easy-ozy manner, as my mother would say?
I am quite easy-ozy. Yeah, no, therapy's definitely been a big part of it. And yeah, and sort of, I mean, I also think, you know, I had, like, as discussed in that first book you held up, a very difficult childhood. And so I there it is, not my father's son.
It's available all good bookshops. It's very, very good. It's quite sort of like difficult to read. Like,
yes, it is a lot. So I think there's an element of, you know, and I've spoken to people about people who have had trauma, that in a funny way, it's sort of, there is a liberation in having had what you believe to be the worst thing that could possibly happen to you happen. Because after that, then everything's, you know, either you're going to have something and you think, oh, well, this is also bad, but I've done it before, or it won't be as bad.
Yeah.
You know, and that is liberating in a way. You think, oh, you know, what really, I actually, one of the things I say, like whenever, actually, this is the way I start my new book coming soon. I say, how are you? I will say, still alive.
Yeah.
And then I also say, you know, someone say, oh, blah, blah, blah happened. I go, well, nobody died, you know, and also, what's the worst thing that could happen?
Yeah.
Things like that. I always say those things of like, let's, you know, really, when you come down to it, it's not going to be as bad as the worst things that could happen. And actually, I find that to me has really helped me, you know, not sweat what's that thing? Not sweat
don't sweat the small stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't, in a way, it's made me fearless, sometimes to my detriment. It's made me, I don't have, like, I'm very conscious when I have anxiety. When I have anxiety, I'm like, what's going on? I'm anxious. Why am I anxious about this? You know, and sometimes like it's to do with my work or nerves or something. But in other things in my life, I'm very attuned to, because I don't generally have that sort of worries. So
lucky you.
I know. I honestly, I live with an anxious person, and my husband, he's anxious. I mean, he's not, you know, but he's, you know, he's sort of an anxious person. He worries about things, and that's why we're such a good match, actually, because he pulls me back from the edge of jumping off it, you know, and I pull him back from the edge from, you know, freaking out
into the wall.
yeah. And he's like, he like, we have this thing. He once said this thing, and it's all. I bet he regrets it, actually, because he said once to my friend Eddie, I was in Edinburgh at the festival, and I was doing these club coming parties, and I was crowd surfing. It's just the most fun. It was when you go, I'm going, and you go like this, and you go out, and the people, you know, lift you. It's so fun, and act of trust and everything, and just you know, it's hilarious. Anyway, I was doing that, and my friend Eddie saw me on Instagram doing that, and he said to Grant, my husband said, you know, aren't you worried? Alan's crowd surfing in Edinburgh, and he's probably drunk, and, you know, blah blah. And Grant was like, Eddie, of course I'm worried. I saw that on Instagram too. Of course I'm an anxious person. I'm absolutely terrified Alan's doing that. But Alan is a butterfly, and we have to let him fly. And I know, it's so lovely. And now when he said that, I was like, oh, I love that. Yeah, I love that you, I mean, it's a little sort of Hallmark cardsy, but I love that you realize that about me, that you know, what I always say to him is that you don't, what I've loved about being with him is he hasn't tried to change me. Everybody else I've ever been with wanted to change me.
Yeah.
And so that, you know, if we have a thing where I go, no, you've got to, you know, you can't, your anxiety is affecting me, and you can't do that. And he always goes, oh yes, I've got to, you're a butterfly, I've got to let you fly. It's our little thing. I said, you're not letting me fly.
You're quite tough for a butterfly, I think.
I'm a tough butterfly, yeah, but I'm sort of, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, of course, yeah.
I'm not a butterfly, but I'm a bit like that. I'm a bit like, oh, I'm doing this now. Oh, I'm going to do this, and you know, it's it's just, and it's a sort of it's actually really good to be with someone who I listen to his worries, and he listens to the fact I say, I don't think that's a valid worry, and or valid, or that's not fair, that worry. And I think it works out really well, actually. It's yin and yang.
Yeah, well, that sounds like a great relationship.
Yeah,
you should find him. Don't say America. So if we can talk about your book, this one.
Yes.
So this is a sort of memoir from your childhood, which was pretty difficult. Your dad wasn't very nice, to put it mildly.
No,
Can
he's
you,
very violent.
yeah, what, how do you come through that? I mean, it's obviously in here, and I would really recommend that people go and buy this, because I feel like Graham Norton doing this. It's fantastic. I feel like I'm a celebrity. Well, they have someone else's book, but it's because it's really beautifully written, and it's what I think you managed to do is communicate the awfulness of the situation, but with such a sort of, this sounds weird, but it's such a lightness of touch. Do you know what I mean? And there's just a sort of real life in the writing, when if you're describing horrible things, the writing can be horrible and it's not pleasant to read. But this isn't pleasant to read because of what's happening, but the writing is a nice experience, if that makes sense. I think.
Yes, no, I know what you mean. I think it's partly a balancing act to, it's also like I kind of keep the awfulness in short bursts, and so they're more effective that way. And
presumably that was the way that his temper worked as well.
Yes, it was sort of, I know, but I think the thing I try to do talk about in the book is this tension all the time. There's just this silence and fear of when's the next sort of attack going to come.
Yeah.
And then, sometimes it'd be a while, then you'd be caught off guard and suddenly it's, you're thrown across the floor. So it's, I wanted to sort of, it's a very difficult thing to write about horrible experience and really change the public's perception of you, because that's what that's what I felt I was doing by writing that book. And so I felt I still wanted it to be me, public to hear me in it and what they think of me. And I'm sort of quite a fun sort of person. And I genuinely am a person. And I've come through what I've done, what happened to me. And then, the stuff in the book's actually about my childhood, but also some other weird shit that happened about 10 years ago when my father told me I wasn't his son. And I found out my granddad died in Malaysia playing Russian roulette, stuff like that. And so I think it was very nerve-wracking, but I just wanted to, I guess I got the balance right, because people, it's also a bit of a page turner, because there was sort of suspense in the story. It was I was waiting to find out, was I his son, and all this stuff was happening. It was a crazy thing. But I at the same time, I wanted to express, how abuse happens and how abuse continues. And that thing of people say, oh, why didn't, you get out of it? Why didn't your mum take you away? Why didn't these things? That's not how it works. When you live with a very good abuser, they rely on your shame and your protection of them. And that was also something that, it's actually fascinating, because this book has been such an incredible experience for me and my mum and my brother, because it's about something that was incredibly shameful for us, that we'd gone through this, that we'd lived in an abusive situation for so long, and me venting it. And I was so worried about how they would respond to it and what the fallout for them would be, because they're not famous and they're not interviewed and they're not, able to sort of process it in the way that I can. And actually, it's been a great thing. It's been so liberating, realizing how much it helps to talk about stuff. And like seeing my mum and my brother getting a round of applause at a book event from a crowd of people because they're so appreciative that they're there supporting me in telling this story was such a great thing. And it just helped them help them so much too. And also the biggest thing, of course, is that the book helped so many people. I get it's about 5-6 years ago now since it came out, and every single day I still get on social media or various ways people saying, oh, because you told your story, that helped me, and I see you as this person who's happy and blah blah blah. That helped me deal with mine, like talk to an abusive person in my family, or deal with some situation. There's a lady in Israel who said that she was able to talk about the fact that she had a stillborn child for the first time after reading my book and things like that. And she goes around in Tel Aviv sticking little pictures of me saying inspiration on lampposts. Isn't that amazing? So, you know, things like that. But the thing is, though, the thing I didn't like, and what I'm dealing with in my new book, which is coming out, it's called Baggage, in October, is that the idea that, especially in America, this happened, that when that book came out, it was like, Alan has triumphed, Alan is, you know, sort of cured, he's overcome all these things. And what I'm trying to say in this new book is, no, you don't, you don't have to have had an abusive, violent father. Everyone's got their shit, and no one ever is cured of it or gets over it. If you do, that means you're embracing denial as your modus operandi. Basically, we all just manage our pasts, and that's what we have to embrace. And this book sort of shows how, you know, the shadow of all that stuff that happened to me affected a lot of my adult relationships and life, and it continues to. And I just have to kind of, you know, put it in perspective.
Yeah.
That was a very long answer to a question, Gareth.
Very interesting answer, though. Thank you. Keep talking. No one's here to hear me. Well, I think so any recovery of any kind is a process. It's not an event. And I think that's the mistake that people make. They think, oh, that is me cured. And you're like, no, it's an ongoing thing. And
that's what I feel like, you know, that if that thing I said about if the worst thing has happened to you, well, then you must also have to face the worst thing could happen again. And so it's partly of that, you're accepting that the worst, but you're also vigilant. I mean, it's like you say, any recovery is about vigilance, that you don't want to go back there. So it's the same thing. I can imagine, it's not outside my mental periphery, that I could fall off the edge a bit again and have another nervous breakdown in my life. You know, but I'm very vigilant about not letting that happen. And when I find, you know, when things start to, when I'm triggered, and I am triggered quite often about, you know, it's a huge thing to have gone through. And I'm very, very conscious of it. And I think that's what's important. Be vigilant.
Because I mean, for me, like I think a lot of gay men have difficulties with their fathers. And I think one of the things, and I mean, it's sort of, I am one of those gay men, and just that way that it affects, well, it affected all, I'll speak for myself, speak for no one else. It affects my relationships with men. Yeah. And it's that thing, I think it's where so in effect, your father is the first man that breaks your heart, because he's supposed to love you and he doesn't. Yeah. And that's really confusing.
No, absolutely. And also, like I mean, I think I write about this in my new book, that I realized for several relationships of both sexes, actually, I thought I could fix angry people because I wanted to fix my dad. So, you know, there's just things like that. And when you actually realize, oh, I see, that's right, I can't fix you. You have to fix yourself. And you're just ultimately you're going to turn on me for trying to help you. No, that's things like that it takes a long time because you see these patterns and you see that the same thing keeps happening. You think, oh, I see, not such a good move. That takes a while, but it's all from that, you know, it's all, you know, and as I say, it's not just about everyone has to deal with that. Everyone will have, something. You know, something. Yeah, there's something, and it's something from your childhood when you're forming. It's funny, my friend, I have this great friend in California, and she told me the other day that she's just started painting, and she's like 60, and she just started painting. She's a writer and a director, and she sent me these pictures. They're like, oh my God, they're like amazing painting. And I said, well, how did you suddenly? She goes, oh, well, when I was little, I was really good at painting, and I remember I drew this penguin at school, and everyone, the art teacher was like, oh my God, it's amazing. And look, and was taken to the headmaster's office and said, oh, this is really good. We're going to give. She took it home and showed her mum, and her mum went, oh, that's lovely. Scrumpled it up and threw it in the bin. And so she's like, basically for like 50 years, had pushed away this thing because it didn't please her mum. And now she's coming back to all these years. I mean, things like that are just everywhere.
Yeah, I think you kind of, oh, well, I had an ex-boyfriend of mine who said to me once, for someone who had such a miserable childhood, you've made it last a long time. Which I wrote down. But I think it's that thing where you have to move through it. The only way round is through, right? And totally. I think it's your kind of testament to that, in the fact that you're a really generous person, I think, because that's one of the words I'd use about you. Because one of the things I did not show, which of course is how we bonded even further, was Alan is in my monologue, what I wrote, now available on DVD. And I couldn't believe you said yes to doing that. And I thought, actually, I should have believed that because of your generosity, because you have such a kind of sort of broad taste and a willingness to try stuff. And I think that's...
But I also did it because it was a really great script, Gareth.
Go on, tell me again. No,
I did.
That's nice of you to say, thank you.
No, but that's the main reason I did it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I will, okay, great. So shut up. So obviously you are in Australia. You're embarrassed. You're in Australia at the moment, but you live in America and you're Scottish. Should we talk politics?
Yes.
I'm hoping that Scotland becomes independent. When you go back to America, I mean, I've got friends there at the moment, and there's all these impeach Biden signs up everywhere because of the stolen election. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
is America a nice place to be at the moment?
Well, it's nicer than it was. You know, it's so interesting. It's just how, before the election, I was actually in Canada. I went to Canada, I shot a thing for Apple TV Plus, Apple Plus TV. What's it called? Apple? You know, Apple.
Yeah.
Okay. The Apple TV thing.
Plus.
In Canada. Yeah. And I was there for the election, and it was so nice to be out of America because it was leading up to it. It was terrifying. I had like a really scary, I was getting a lot of, hate online for posting stuff, and like death threats and stuff, and just crazy. And I just thought, I can't stay in this. I don't feel safe in this country. And then, so since then, I feel better. I'm aware all this stuff is happening, obviously, but it's kind of the detritus of Trump that is, there's still these, I mean, it's still there. It's not so powerful, but I just love the fact that Biden is slamming through so many things. That is really heartening to me. I feel like there's really positive things happening that will hopefully, that people will, when they stop shouting, will sort of realize, oh, it's not so bad. But I see that Trump's going to be doing rallies and things soon. And I just think the anger and the encouragement of violence and ignorance is really terrifying. And refusing to do the report into the insurrection.
Yeah.
That's just blows my mind. And the lack of, all the things now, the voting suppression. I mean, there's all that stuff. It's not just about crazy people with horns on, saying that the election was stolen. It's about sort of legislators around the country trying to not let poor people and poor people of color vote. And it's just so, it's like kind of, whenever there's a great uprising, there's another one on the opposite side shortly after. So we've had last year with the Black Lives Matter thing. I think this is the sort of the reaction to that, in terms of this legislation. I mean, I don't know. I live in New York, and so it doesn't really feel like America. It doesn't feel like the America that when I go outside of New York does. Feels like. And but I also live upstate in the Catskills, and you get a bit more of a taste of it there. But I live in a bubble. I'm not ever going to dispute that. But I don't know. I feel heartened. But again, you've got to be vigilant. You've got to be really vigilant. And I just think it's great that there's people who are intelligent and who believe in science and believe in compassion are in power. At least we've got that.
Yeah, yeah. Yes. Same cannot be said of Britain.
I just think it's hilarious that Dominic Cummings has become the hero. I mean, sort of, isn't it funny? He was like that slimy little shit for breaking the rules because he could, the one rule for us and one rule for them. And now he's throwing them under the bus and we're all like, oh, hurrah, hurrah.
Yeah.
It's just shocking.
Yeah. We on the left the Tories are still, whatever it is, 44 points in the polls, which maybe Britain's a really intolerant country. I don't know.
Those by-elections, I mean, that last election, so it was great. The Scottish one, a great result, the mandate for independence, all those things, that was great. But look at Hartlepool, those places like that are going to, I mean, what the hell? Even with all the shit that's been happening, still Tory gains. I think it blows my mind.
I don't understand it. I just don't. And that's why I think that Scotland's only chance to get out from underneath this.
I know. Seriously, get out.
get out.
We should like that film, like the Get Out film, but it's like that's
Daniel Cullinan.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be funny if they remade it with a Scottish person instead of a black person? It's actually quite funny.
That would be.
They're all like Tories.
Oh,
family.
Yeah.
And even Boris getting married this weekend. And in
a Catholic church,
all the Catholic churches say, how the fuck does he get married? He's been divorced. Things like that. They're just absolute. Doesn't count. It doesn't. I mean, that awful. I'm haunted by that picture of him and Gove and Clegg and all of them on those pillars. At Oxford, in that club. What's it called again?
The Bullingdon Club. Yeah.
That picture really gives me nightmares because it's just like that's what it's like. That's what it's still like. There's going to be another group. Yeah. Of boys, of posh boys who've been in Eton and gone to, the same, and they're in the same club and they're at the same college, and they will be running the country unless we do something about it. Yeah. It's just awful. It's been that forever.
Yeah, and it's a hangover from empire, from having the empire. The boarding schools fed the military and the civil service and the bureaucracy of the empire, and just it staggers me because I thought you had to be clever to get into Oxford. And I just think if I'd tried a little less hard, I could have been Prime Minister.
Yes. No, you don't. Gareth, no.
No. Oh, would you ever go into politics would you go in as a politician? Or
I mean, I don't think so. I think actually, I think in a funny way I have more power as being me, as being a performer and having more of a platform that way. And I don't have to, I'm also, I think it's really interesting when I see people immediately, the way that you would be, the way I would be, it's not something I'm thinking of, but it has been mooted, but that immediately it would be your private life, all these things about, that would just become, not that there's many secrets, not anything I don't really talk about, but stuff like that I don't want to be. I feel like right now I'm my own person. I only answer to myself and my husband and family. I don't want to be judged on other people's standards, and that's what you have to do in politics. You have to be judged by basically the other party's standards because they're they're the ones who can bring you down by what they think. And actually I don't think that's important. I actually think what's important is the issues and helping people that are, really, the notion of public service has been completely lost. The idea that you go and you want to help people who are less fortunate than yourself. Remember that? It just seems
wow. No, you're gonna have to run that by me again.
I know.
We're almost out of time, so I'm gonna start winding up. It's gone fast, doesn't it?
I know.
Do you have any great unfulfilled ambition or anything like that? Or does that run counter to your living in the moment thing that you don't think, because you've given the world your Hamlet and your Macbeth and you've done those big milestone-y traditional things. And, you write your own stuff, you perform your own stuff, you're friends with Liza Minnelli, what is there left to achieve in life?
I don't actually have. I used to, when people would say, oh, what role is it? I would always say King Lear and thinking, oh, it's going to be so long Now it's not so long. Really.
Yeah.
I don't want to play King Lear. I think I hate that play.
Yeah.
I think it's really annoying. But no, there's not. It's sort of like I don't have. I don't yearn, Gareth. I don't think yearning is very healthy, because it feels like it's not being in the present. It's sort of looking over into the future, and sort of you're maybe missing something that's right in front of you because you're always looking ahead. So I mean, there's things that I want to do. There's things I want to get, but I have this production company. There's projects I'm trying to get made. Yes, including we're starting to try and get a film of Macbeth actually. But there's not sort of things. There's not. I don't feel, and actually I feel like I sometimes manifest things. Like I really do. Like I say I'd really like to do this, and like with the thing in for Apple, it was like, I said I'd like to go. I think it's time. I'd like to start working again, but something in not somewhere safe, like in Canada, somewhere an ensemble thing where there wouldn't be too much pressure, and not too long. Blooming what happened, and I sort of am a big believer in that, and I just sort of like I'm just now I think it's an interesting time. I've been offered these kind of interesting, fun films. A really fascinating young writer and director has asked me to do a film, and this crazy film in Israel, and just sort of it's a very sort of fecund time for me in terms of, and also I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to do a 3-part thing for Channel 4. I'm going to go round Scotland, a travel show round Scotland in a van with Miriam Margolyes.
Oh, she was Silver Pride's guest of honor last year. That's good.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, well, look at that. Good following act. So yeah, I'm going to go round in a van with Miriam.
Oh, that'll be
fun. Knows what that'll be like. I saw Dan Radcliffe, because he was in Endgame with me, and I think the reason that they asked me to do this is that we went on Graham Norton, talking of Graham. Miriam was on, and she was there, showing her knickers, figuratively.
Yes, swearing.
And I was like, no, Miriam, no. Like I slapped her down a couple of times when she was trying to get a bit saucy. And I think that's anyway. So Dan, and he'd done all the Harry Potter films, obviously, with her. Yeah. And he said she used to be in the makeup bus and be, swearing in front of all the kids and farting, like that with impunity. And so when I saw him just before I came to Australia, I had lunch with him. I was telling him, I said, "Oh my gosh, you'll never guess what, I'm going to do this travel show with Miriam." And he just looked at me and went, "Alan, the farts." Because it was in a van, he just feels I'm going to be.
Oh yeah. Have those windows rolled down?
I say there'll be summer, I'll have the windows open. I can't believe it's actually something I'm considering, is about how to avoid Miriam Margolyes' farts in my life.
Well, on that note,
where's there to go?
Where is there to go? Alan Cumming, thank you very much. This is the first event from Silver Pride. There are many more over the weekend, more interviews, panels, discussions. There's a cook along. And yes, there's much more coming from Silver Pride. So thank you, Alan Cumming. And
thank you, Gareth. It's lovely to talk to you, as always. Thank you.
Bye-bye.